So, Charles, yet again been an incredibly busy couple of days, very productive couple of days.
Yeah, we've done an enormous amount, and we started with the governance workshop. It was really useful.
Indeed. So we joined our council for a non-council day. It was really, I suppose, to step away from the agenda, the governance agenda, and really to look at our skills, our leadership skills, our governance skills, and all of that obviously set within the context of our strategy.
Yeah, and I think we've, over the years, and we've referred to this in our annual report, we've been really working hard at the roles of governance and management and respecting those roles, but also how we work together. And where we've been working increasingly well together is in terms of setting the values, the tone, and obviously working together on our strategy.
Indeed, and I think that's a great point. I mean, clearly governance is there to support the executive side. Equally, executives is there to deliver on the strategy overseen by governance. We need to have our own focus, but then to be effective, we need to be very well aligned.
And one of the things we're doing at the moment is actually working with the FRC on their culture project. And yesterday we had another session which was looking at that. And one of the things that came out of that culture discussion was the importance actually of boards working effectively together. So we're practicing what we're preaching.
Indeed, and a demand by the regulator in that case to engage with CIMA, for us to share our views on stewardship and trust, which obviously is a key pillar within our global management accounting principles.
Yeah, and then we moved on to the past president's lunch.
We did. So again, past presidents, obviously they have contributed a huge amount to CIMA over the years. We probably met with, I guess, about 12 or 15 past presidents, so that very much reflects our heritage. They still engage with CIMA, but very much now forward-looking, and they provide insight and some views in terms of how our strategy is progressing.
Yeah, and we shared with them our strategy, and I thought we got some really super feedback in terms of what we're planning to do, where we're going.
Indeed.
And also I think they were very pleased to hear about things like the 100,000th member and just generally the progress of the Institute, which they've done so much to drive forward over the years.
Absolutely. And much as their title is past presidents, I mean, I think they were focusing our minds around the vision. They were curious about, the mindset of our students, what it is that they want from CIMA going forward into the future. And obviously all our members, and particularly our members of our governance, need to be cited on not only members, but the members of the future, which are the students.
Which is very powerful because they've got that enormous experience of what we're all about, but they are somewhat detached and therefore can remind us of things that we lose sight of because we're so much involved in the day-to-day.
Indeed, so it's a good way, I think, to take advantage of their wisdom and their experience, and obviously they're still so committed to CIMA and its future. And then, of course, we went on last evening to have the President's Dinner, which is an annual event here in the City of London. Many influencers and senior business leaders come out to attend, and I was delighted that we had Helena Morrissey as our keynote speaker.
Yeah, and we had about 250 people overall, didn't we? And Helena was talking on a very wide canvas indeed. I mean, she covered so much, but ultimately her real messages about the importance of investors taking decisions on a principled and structured basis, and then aligning that to our management accounting principles, and the importance of business also taking their decisions on a similar basis, a structured basis, thinking about the relevance, thinking about the external environment, and her support for the management accounting principles, I think, was extremely powerful. And,
absolutely.
We're going to work on. We're delighted to have her as an advocate in that regard.
Absolutely. So it's tremendous having her there. She did cover a huge array of topics. She did very much value our global management accounting principles. She was talking a lot about human capital, and so increasingly CIMA is now focusing so much more on the intangible value to business. So we would recognise that 80% of the value of a business is not on the balance sheet, and that's really driven us to our strapline around that. Basically, we as CIMA and our management accountants, we focus on the whole business and not just accounting purely for the balance sheet. And I thought it was really interesting to hear Helena focus on the people side of that in particular.
And actually in today's Economist, which has its lead article, talks about business and the new dimension and so forth, and talks about things that we've been talking about for quite a long time, that businesses actually just have two things, money and people. And therefore, our relationship working with the Chartered Institute of Personnel Development, CIPD, has been really important in terms of our Value Your Talent initiative, which is a joint initiative with us and the UK Commission for Employment and Skills. And Helen has been involved with that as well. And we've developed that framework, and it's now sitting on a VYT website and is really beginning to move forward in terms of measuring the value of people, which is so important to any business.
Indeed. And I think Helena, as a role model, so clearly, she's chief executive of an investment fund, but as a role model to other women and actually to men in business as well. She's done phenomenal work around the 30% Club, for example, which again is all about, I suppose, the talent pipeline for governance and boards. And she made a fantastic comment through the course of her speech, saying that, from her role as an investment CEO of an investment management company, she rates companies really well that consider their governance and that think about their governance and not necessarily ticking the boxes. And so again, I think she's so progressive on many of the areas that she works within, but again, just being very cited on, I suppose, the quality of governance rather than the compliance side of it.
Yeah, so the quality of governance and their decision making back to our management accounting principles. But the 30% Club, for instance, actually really driving material change, because actually creating the right diversity in your board really does help you understand your customer. And ultimately, something we've been saying is, if you're really driving a successful business, then the focus of that business on the customer and making sure you've got the right KPIs and so forth related to that, hugely important.
Indeed, which I think was again underpinned by the value of people and relationships to make successful businesses. And then of course today we have just had council meeting over the course of the last several hours. Any number of really interesting discussions there as well. Assessment, we have been bold, fair to say, in terms of our strategy around assessment. And now that has launched at the beginning of this calendar year and is now going through implementation. So we are applying our own analytical approach in terms of understanding the behavioural changes and also how we support our students and our tuition providers going through that change.
Yeah, and it's really important to remember that the competency framework and everything that sits in it, which is the syllabus, the practical experience, the CPD, that's all been the subject of very, very deep research, which enables us to be extraordinarily proud of our syllabus.
Yeah.
The change in the assessment, which is putting everything online, is exactly how students actually have to work in business. And that change is something which is challenging our students, it's been challenging us, we need to support them better, and we've been seeing that level of support becoming more and more effective and being appreciated by our students over the last few months. So we're making really good progress, but I think ultimately that progress is for two things. It's for the benefit of the student and future member, and very much for the benefit of the employers as well, the business community. So better business coming out of this as well.
Absolutely. And I think you made the point, the assessment now mirrors the work environment as closely as possible. So we want our students to come through clearly with a qualification, but also to be business ready. And that's as much about the softer skill set, and we're trying to capture as much of that through the education and the assessment cycle as possible.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, we can be really proud of what we've done.
Indeed.
And that pride is because we're actually providing something which is truly relevant to business, whether it's in the private or the public sector, whether it's large or small.
And we then also had a terrific update with regard to differentiation. So what it is that sets CIMA and our management accountants apart from other finance professionals. And certainly, we've always had the very good messaging, but I think now the way we have the visuals and the material that'll be forthcoming that we can share with our members over the course of the near term.
Absolutely, and very near term. And it's a real focus on value. It's linking to the two things we've already talked about, the competency framework and also our management accounting principles, and both of those basically helping organisations in terms of taking better quality decisions and being able to effectively report better as well.
So Charles, we also had one of our regular reviews on the joint venture, which when we set it up 3 years ago, we committed to, as part of the joint venture, we would regularly review progress and discuss it with our council.
Yeah, and it continues to go incredibly well. The number of people taking out the CGMA in the US is fantastic, and that widening that management accounting market in the US is very, very strong. One of the things that we've been very much involved with over the years is the International Integrated Reporting Council, the IRC, and they themselves are going through a structural change in terms of their governance, and I think strengthening their board, and it's very good to see that Barry Mellinson, the President and CEO of AICPA, is becoming the next chair of the board. So that strengthening of our relationship and our relationship with the IRC, I think, is very powerful as well.
And of course, even on CIMA's own governance, governing body, our council, we have a number of AICPA colleagues who are now part of our council. Unfortunately, they couldn't be with us in person today. They've just been through their fall council, which is their major meeting annually. And just with time zones and distances, they weren't able to be with us physically today. But I think it's really important that we have their views and their inputs in relation to our strategy and our matters of policy.
And they were on the phone, so
indeed, absolutely.
And we heard how their council had gone, which was very successful, and moving forward the AICPA both from a public practice and a management accounting perspective.
Indeed. And as we were talking about talent and the importance of people, we also had a very significant part of the agenda. So our process for progressing people through the governance structure of CIMA, we do most of that through election. We walk the talk in terms of our own values around transparency. So this morning we had presentations from 2 candidates who will be standing for election as the incoming Vice President at next year's AGM. And so even in terms of how we selected the order in which they would speak, we do that in a very open and transparent way, not highly scientific. I do believe we pull the names out of the hat to choose the order in which they speak. But again, in terms of being fair, open and transparent, that's really important around the selection for governance roles.
And they also have sort of guidelines as to what it is that they're talking about, which is really important, and those guidelines are very much about aligning their skills with CIMA and its strategy and its vision. So we very much heard then how they can believe that they can help CIMA drive forward, which I think gives those voting for them it puts them in a much stronger position to select what they believe is the strongest candidate.
Indeed.
So it's going to be a very interesting result in a few weeks' time.
Absolutely. So the strongest candidate based on merit and not based on, who knew which candidate better or whatever. So certainly that's one of the things I'm very proud of in terms of the way we conduct our governance. We're committed to continuous improvement, and we will always keep an eye out to make sure that we are as effective as we possibly can be on the governance side, and equally I'm sure that's true of the executive side as well.
Absolutely. So we've done a lot in the last 2 days.
Indeed.